What do you know about genocide in Rwanda?
Well, there was two different tribes, the Tutus and the Tutsis, possibly.
It's a horrible thing. I mean, you hear about the death squads killing kids and people just for no reason at all.
It was two tribes, Tutsi and Hutu. There was a Hutu president at the time that was very favorable to both groups, and he sort of met his demise in a plane crash or something.
From Kibuye in the west to Kibongo in the east, people gathered seeking refuge in churches by the thousands, in hospitals and schools. And when they were found, the old and the sick, women and children alike, they were killed. Killed because their identity card said they were Tutsi, or because they had a Tutsi parent, or because someone thought they looked like a Tutsi, or slain like thousands of Hutus because they protected Tutsis, or would not countenance a policy that sought to wipe out people who just the day before and for years before had been their friends and neighbors.
Ndababaye kubera ko afite iyo ntangiye kurakonta l'histoire yo mu Rwanda, nkibuka ukuntu bishe umugabo wanje kugeza ubu akaba n'abamwishe batarigeze bakurikiranwa, ahubwo bakavuga ngo abatutsi ngo nibo bapfuye bonyine kandi n'abahutu harimo abapfuye. Kuki batavuga umuntu hano irandege ko hariho n'impamvu yaturutseyo kugira ngo abantu benshi bapfe hariya mu Rwanda, uwo muntu nawe agacibwa urubanza kimwe n'abandi.
Dans la nuit du 6 avril 1994, dans l'après-midi, en fin d'après-midi, j'étais avec deux de mes cousins dans la piscine de notre résidence privée. Et quand il commençait à faire nuit, nous avons continué à rester dans la piscine. Et à un moment donné, vers entre 20h et 20h30, nous avons quitté la piscine pour rentrer dans la maison. Et à ce moment-là où on marchait entre la piscine et la maison, nous avons entendu un bruit d'avion. Et c'était un bruit particulier. Les moteurs de l'avion de notre père, je le connaissais particulièrement. Et à ce moment-là, il n'y avait pas d'autres avions de ligne qui étaient attendus à Kigali. Et donc j'ai dit à mes cousins, c'est l'avion de papa, donc attendons qu'il passe au-dessus de nous et puis après on rentre dans la maison. Et donc c'est à ce moment-là que, en même temps qu'on voyait l'avion approcher, c'est à ce moment-là qu'on a vu des tirs de missiles tirés vers l'avion et à la fin les tirs ont atteint l'avion et l'avion a explosé en l'air et les restes sont venus tomber dans notre résidence.
On a même raconté que c'était Madame Habyarimana qui avait commandité l'attentat. Certains ont dit ça, qu'elle voulait divorcer, qu'elle ne trouvait pas de moyen de divorcer du président Habyarimana. On a tout entendu. Alors que s'il y a bien une chose qui est claire aujourd'hui, et dans les semaines qui vont venir, les mois qui vont venir, ça va je dirais encore plus apparaître au grand jour, c'est que le président Habyarimana a été abattu, que l'avion est tombé sur la résidence où se trouvait Madame Habyarimana et ses enfants.
Kugira ngo byihute, perezida yapfuye ku itariki ya 6 isaa 2 n'igice, kuko izo misiri narazumvise. Iryo joro inkotanyi zica abantu ku Kicukiro n'i Remera no ku Kacyiru, zitangira kwica abahutu no kugeza mu gitondo. Abahutu nabo bakoze reaction, bica abarwanashyaka bo muri FPR. Noneho rero byabaye nk'uko nibyo njya mvuga, byabaye nk'intambara ya 14 na 18 ragera 14-18 yatewe n'iki nuko bishe archiduc n'umugore we archiduc de Vienne. La mort de l'archiduc de Vienne et l'impératrice bamaze kuba assassiné à la Bosnie, je crois. Intambara, la première guerre mondiale a éclaté. N'ibindi nuko byabaye à peu près.
RPF was a disciplined army. It never made sense. It never made sense. Disciplined army, they'd committed a couple rapes, a couple soldiers were caught, a couple people were killed here and there, but the RPF was absolutely disciplined. There are plenty of media experts who are, journalists in particular, who are selling that story, knowing perfectly well that there was some things that weren't true about it. 800,000 to 1.2 million Tutsis killed. And Newsweek even said, there's nothing we can do except wait out the slaughter and hope to survive.
Some of the earliest articles that appeared in the New York Times magazine and the New Yorker actually referred to the RPF soldiers as having aristocratic bearing, whereas the contrast was made that the Hutu were agricultural, squat, and all the negative attributes that I'd mentioned earlier.
Well, first interpretation of what was going on in Rwanda was that a horrible slaughter was going on. And I think that was pretty obvious at the time. It's even more obvious today. Yes, it was a shocking slaughter. The standard version was Hutus were carrying out a mindless killing of Tutsis. I saw no reason to question that.
There were pogroms, there were massacres by both sides, disinformation on all sides. At the elite level, as you go down the food chain, people are scared regardless of ethnicity, regardless of region, religion, whatever cleavage you want to choose. Rwandans were caught up in the violence. So it's absurd to say that only Tutsi are victims.
The RPF first, when it invaded Rwanda, it killed Hutus and the Tutsis, which means that it did not invade Rwanda to save Tutsis. Tutsis who had been left behind, those Tutsis who remained in Rwanda in 1959, 1973, those were not the aristocrats. The aristocrats are Kagame and his associates. They don't care about those people.
Did Kagame give order to shoot down this aircraft or not? Who is Kagame after all? Is he innocent in what has happened in Rwanda? In what has happened in Congo? Is he really innocent? Or he is a criminal?
He's a soldier, and he was trained as a soldier. His work in Uganda was to help overthrow an existing government.
According to the U.S. ambassador to Rwanda, Robert Flotten, who testified in our case, in this late November 1993, he specifically told Paul Kagame that if Kagame resumed the war, he would be responsible for deaths on the order of the hundreds of thousands of deaths that were occurring at about the same time in Burundi after the assassination of the Burundian president.
The Hutus who were trying to escape the slaughter had three options: either to go down south into Burundi, or to go east into Tanzania, or to go into Congo through Goma. Now, the ones who ran into Tanzania, they were met at the bridge, and then the Hutus who were trying to flee into Tanzania were captured by the Tutsi forces, which had already captured that territory, dumped them in the river, and these are the people who floated down the river into Lake Victoria and Uganda. And then Paul Kagame and the Museveni and their benefactors outside paraded these dead bodies as these are the Tutsis who have been killed by the Hutus. when it is the other way around.
I wanted RPF, who has taken care of me, food and shelter, to help me find my family, which I did not have then. So I was escorted by RPF from Kigali to Gikongoro because I was searching for my family. I was myself too. I called people to say, come, you see, I'm Hutu, I'm not Tutsi. I did. They didn't kill me, so the people came. Sorry, they killed them. I'm guilty. So when I saw them killed, I never call again. I had to shut my mouth.
When the revenant came down, we couldn't imagine what it was. In the spirit of 3 stars, the alien thing that took its form.
In the case of Rwanda, as bad as what happened in Rwanda was, it went absolutely according to plan. Habyarimana and his government were gone. The Hutu government of Burundi was gone. The border with Zaire, Democratic Republic of Congo, became more porous. Eventually, Mobutu was gone, and the entire area and its natural resources were up for grabs to the highest bidder, U.S. being the world's only remaining superpower, was of course the country that stood to benefit the most.
Et donc, cet attentat était en réalité un coup d'État. Pourquoi il était un coup d'État? Simplement parce que les Américains avaient décidé de changer de stratégie dans la région. Habyarimana avait refusé de servir, que son pays serve de base arrière aux intérêts américains, israéliens et surtout aux intérêts des multinationales.
In fact, many people were very surprised when suddenly, in 1990, international media, Belgian media, French media, accused the regime of Rwanda of human rights violations. Because until then, this regime had been portrayed by the World Bank and the IMF and other international groupings as a good role model, a good student of the World Bank and the IMF.
Why is Rwanda being allowed to be invaded by Uganda? Uganda had actually launched a war of aggression in 1990. And I said it then, and I maintain it up today. Had that war of aggression been dealt with, and had it been halted, the mass killings typically referred to as the genocide of 1994 never would have occurred.
I don't know whether I've been to Kigali, where they have put a museum of skulls. Does that remind somebody of what has happened in Luero in Uganda, where there's museums of skulls? And the museums, the skulls have been found in places where the NRA was operating during the struggle, where the government forces were not in control. The Pentagon has helped Yoweri Museveni make sure that this war continues, because by giving him weapons, the kind of so-called war continues in the north about fighting Kony. And there's a lot of money that the US government has put into fighting Kony. Although Kony is not fighting anymore, the money is still flowing. And in whose pocket is it going? It's not going into the government of Uganda pockets. It's going to the pockets of those who are in power in Uganda.
The politics of militarism is also going to kill not only Uganda, but other neighboring countries like Rwanda. Unless both countries renounce the politics of militarism, unless both countries begin to embrace democratic principles and give the rights that every citizen in Rwanda, every citizen in Uganda is entitled to, we are going to be merely postponing another catastrophe, another bloodshed, which is going to be far worse, because at the moment now, there are guns all over Uganda.
Everybody is saying that 8 million people have been killed in the DRC. 500,000 women have been raped, but no one is pointing the finger in the right direction. All these things are happening because we have someone called Mr. Kagame. He is the only one who is training his Tutsi militia, sending them in the DRC to create instability in the eastern part of the Congo so that he may occupy that part of the Congo.
Rwanda and Uganda, with the support of the United States, including weapons and soldiers that worked with them and marched with them all the way into the Congo, invaded the Congo. They have been occupying the Congo since 1998. The world is keeping quiet. The world is keeping quiet because the world is participating in this Holocaust. The whole world is participating in this Holocaust, including the United Nations. And shame on us, shame on the world, shame on every human being that has some kind of power to stop this and is not stopping this, beginning with the superpower, the United States. Shame on us.
Letter written by Paul Kagame to a man named Bagaza, who's a Tutsi who later became president of Burundi, saying that he had just had a conversation with his big brother Museveni in Uganda, and that their plans for Zaire had to be put on hold for a little while because the problem with the Hutu refugees in the Congo was impeding, they were in the way.
So we went in a meeting, State Department meeting. The decision has been made to declare a war against those refugees.
It's this girl that she was riddled with bullet wounds, like she was just, shouldn't have been walking. It's like Bonnie and Clyde's car. She was just all shot up. And she came over to me and like a ghost, she just put her hand out to me and she said, "Don't you go anywhere." Well, I wasn't going anywhere because it was like, you know, I would have been cut in half by bullets myself. And then she went and got her older sisters, and I think her mother was an older woman, and like a little gaggle of geese, she brought them across through all the dead, all the bullets, and she kept on getting hit by more bullets, but none of them did. And then she just settled them around me, and she said, now you get them out of here. And she put her head down on my chest, and she was all hot. And then within a few seconds, she was cold, and she died. And that was, my whole life, that was the bravest act I've ever seen. And that girl hadn't done anything. She couldn't have possibly been part of any genocidal massacres.
The RPF started shooting on a refugee camp where probably 100,000 of refugees on the shore of the river. So we put the raft in, and we were stuck on a huge rock in the middle of the river. And what we could see on the other side is people being killed, the bombs are falling on the shores of the river, people are running in the forest. And I was like, well, we'll never be able to leave again. This might be my last time. To my mind, I was like, no, I don't need assistance. What I need is to escape. What I need is to get away from this Hutu and Tutsi conflict because it's bigger than me.
The military one judgment has said that there was no organized planned genocide in Rwanda. So far, in the many cases that have been heard at the ICTRO, none of the court has come out conclusively with all the evidence before the court. There was a plan to perpetrate genocide in Rwanda. Quite on the contrary, the court have held that what transpired in Rwanda was a spontaneous reaction to the killing of the president, the assassination of President Habyarimana and his Burundian counterpart, and also that prior to the assassination of the president, crimes have been perpetrated in Rwanda. Crimes did not start in Rwanda in 1994. The violation of the territorial integrity of Rwanda, in violation of international law by Uganda and its RPF surrogates at the time, it's led to unprecedented massacre of civilians that were not taking part in the war.
The standard picture over and over again is that the intellectuals either deny or minimize the crimes for which they are responsible, namely those of their own state, and which they could do something about, and become eloquent and passionate about the crimes of others.
Genocide is used by various actors to meet their own political needs. It's a very politicized word.
About the situation of my country, genocide, massacres, you name it, the truth still has to be told.
When the revenant came down, we couldn't imagine what it was. In the spirit of the 3 stars, the alien thing that took its form.